Go.
All right, I'm going to start with a video.
Oh yeah, I was this close to getting a chair on the Polish Philharmonic, and I nailed the audition, but I didn't get it. Guess who did? Yo-Yo Ma's cousin, little Nepetiz. But anyway, I just decided to give up on myself and become a teacher because those that can't do, teach. And those that can't teach, teach gym.
Okay, so how many of you have heard that phrase before?
You need my help?
I think I got
Now just, go down and hit the,
it. Oops.
go down, yeah.
Right
over. Yep, that's it. You got it.
Okay. So it is too often that teachers or teacher candidates experience a situation in which the profession of teaching is being devalued, such as the situation from School of Rock. They make a mockery of the profession of teaching. Situations such as these led me to ponder the question, which is the glue to my research. What kind of society do we live in that deems teachers, the very people who educate the future leaders of the world, as stupid or as inferior? The media thrives off of putting down teachers of the U.S., and it has led to a lacking sense of teacher professionalism, not only in teachers themselves, but also in students, in parents, and in people of the communities. The vision of teachers as inferior could not have come about out of nowhere. However, it is important to think about the system of education in which Americans are a part, and to look back on what exactly it is that makes non-teachers think this way. In fact, in recent years, the education system has changed dramatically with the implementation of standardized testing. And this seems to be about the same time that the view of teachers shifted in the United States. Therefore, the title of my research is School as Prison: The Role of Competitiveness, Centralized Examinations, and Government Structures in the Secondary Schools of the United States. So why is my research important? My answer to that question lies in a quote presented by Andy Hargreaves and Michael Phelan in their book, Professional Capital: Transforming Teaching in Every School. Hargreaves and Phelan say that the passion for learning and teaching, all these things that make classrooms wondrous and stay with children for the rest of their lives, have been superseded in many places by the push for higher test scores at the price of everything else. The amount of wondrous and unforgettable classes that Hargreaves and Phelan speak about are diminishing in all schools. The United States, considered the melting pot of the world, once valued diversity and originality. A teacher's call to action was once considered developing an understanding of the diverse students' needs in a classroom and working with those diverse needs. By an over-reliance on standardized testing due to a competitive nature instilled by ethnocentric values, teachers are forced to teach to the test, treating students as a homogeneous entity rather than individuals with different qualities to contribute to the classroom. I decided to complete my comparative study between the United States and Finland because the Finnish education system and the American education system are so different, and this makes the issues within the American system much more evident. There's a huge difference in values from both systems of education. The Finnish system values and respects their teachers and their students as individual learners, while the American system values and respects being the best and acing the centralized examinations. I think that it's important first to define these terms that I use throughout my research. The three terms I define here are bureaucratic structures, professional structures, and ethnocentrism. So first, ethnocentrism is according to Helen Fox, is the often unconscious practice of seeing and judging other groups through the lens of one's own cultural styles and values. The American educational system has a sole focus on competitiveness, yearning to be the best at everything, including education. Therefore, seeing through the lens of ethnocentrism can be dangerous to students because of the emphasis on standardized testing. With an increase of standardized testing comes a decrease in teacher autonomy and more of a focus on acing the test. The next definition I'm going to define for you is professional structure in education. And according to Shannon Moran, a profession is characterized by members who pledge their first and primary responsibility to the welfare of those whom they serve. And also their standards of practice are monitored by the profession. So a professional structure in education works together as a whole to create the best experience for students. In fact, students are the sole focus of a professional structure in the classroom. Teachers are greatly respected in schools with professional structures, and the level of trust from the administration towards the teachers is high. Teachers are given complete autonomy and control over their classrooms, therefore leading to a higher sense of teacher professionalism. And the last definition is of bureaucratic structure in education. And in these schools, positional power is concentrated in the office of administrators who use their authority, and they also enforce compliance with organizational directives. So a bureaucratic structure has the power to take away teachers' autonomy, therefore leading to a diminishing sense of teacher professionalism. Rather than having the final say on what he or she does in the classroom, teachers are treated as children. Administrators keep a close eye on all teachers, and teachers are solely monitored by what score their students receive on the standardized tests. Rather than a system in which all parts work together as a whole, there is an inevitable and an unbalanced hierarchy in bureaucratic structures. So let's talk about my research. I have 4 themes to my paper that were inspired by the sources that I read, and those themes are: first, yearning to be the smartest, a focus on performance, which focuses on education in the United States and our obsession with performance. The second theme is standardized testing and fleeting autonomy, which relates the implementation of standardized testing to the devaluing of teacher autonomy, or a teacher's freedom to make his or her own curricular choices. The third theme is an America for Business, which delves into the issues relating to the obsession with business in the U.S. and how that can produce bureaucratic structures in schools. And fourth, a Finland for Education, which tells the story of a country who greatly values and respects education in all aspects. So now I'm going to talk about the literature that I read and how it influenced my sources, or my themes. So the first theme I'm going to talk about is yearning to be the smartest, a focus on performance. Now the source that guided my research through America's obsession with performance was Yang Zhao's Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Dragon? Why China Has the Best and Worst Education System in the World. Yang Zhao offers deep and bright insight into a country whose reliance on performance may be worse than in the United States. His book criticizes the authoritarian system of education in one of the most educationally advanced countries in the world. The Chinese system of education attracts American business leaders because of its undeniably high test scores. Although one of the most looked up to educational systems in the world, Zhao maintains a strong argument that points out the downfall of an authoritarian system in education. He says, the damage done by authoritarianism is the loss of values traditionally celebrated by American education. Values that helped make America the most prosperous and advanced nation in the world. Erase those values and you lose the creative power of a culture that celebrates diversity and respects individuality. Therefore, Zhao argues that the educational system in the United States was once so innovative, creative, and engaging, connecting to all students. Now, with the idea that the nation should mimic China, America has steered in the direction of an authoritarian system, which leads to a performance-based education. This further leads to a decrease in teacher autonomy, which leads me to my next theme. Standardized testing and fleeting autonomy. My most influential source within this theme came from an article called The Effects of Reform. Have Teachers Really Lost Their Sense of Professionalism? Written by Christopher Day and Lindsay Smetham. This article discusses the burning out of teachers in the United States due to the implementation of standardized testing and a set curriculum geared towards acing the test. Smetham and Day explained that for many teachers, the past 20 years have been years of survival rather than development. Surviving in the field of education in America today means succumbing to the standards and teaching to the test. My next theme is an America for Business. One of the best sources for this theme came from one of my interviews that I conducted with a high school government teacher at my alma mater, Lake High School in Uniontown, Ohio. So when asked what factors, if any, would contribute to his leaving of the teaching profession, he said, I would consider leaving the profession altogether if the state continues to push mandates on the education profession that do not contribute to the overall success of students. Rather, the mandates make it look as if legislators are doing what they need to do in order to hold teachers accountable, because they think they know more about the education profession than trained educators do. Unfortunately, because of the mandates, the administration, such as the superintendents and the principals, have implemented a bureaucratic system in schools in order to hold teachers accountable for preparing students for the standardized tests that are of the utmost priority in secondary education. So the last theme that I included in my paper is called A Finland for Education. The best source that informed this theme was a book that we looked at during this capstone course by Pasi Sahlberg called Finnish Lessons 2.0, What Can the World Learn from Educational Reform in Finland? Sahlberg talks about the importance of education in Finland. He says, indeed, Finns continue to regard teaching as a noble, prestigious profession, akin to medicine, law, or economics. Driven mainly by moral purpose rather than by material interest, careers, or rewards. In fact, Finland regards their teachers as highly as they do their doctors, lawyers, and their politics, which is something that you definitely do not see in the United States. So now that I have talked about my sources, I want to discuss the limitations of my study. Some of the limitations of the study include the focus on teachers in the United States for the interviews that were conducted. Contacting over 50 teachers in Finland with the intentions of informing the study with a Finnish outlook on bureaucratic versus professional structures in education, there were no responses in completing the surveys. Therefore, when summarizing the interviews and the results from the interviews, the research lacks education from a Finnish perspective, while from an American perspective, it is thriving. Another limitation of the study is the fact that the teachers who sent complete interviews were from the same school district. This in turn could have biased the study. However, the interviews proved interesting and beneficial to the study. The last limitation of my study is in regards to sources. It was much simpler to find information about the American education system than it was about the Finnish education system. In fact, I only had one source for the Finnish education system, and that was Pasi Sahlberg's Finnish Lessons. So my study focuses on how competition, not only between countries, but also between school districts within the United States in regards to being the best educational system, can lead to a disaster. This disaster lies in standardized testing, which focused student learning on mandates rather than student individuality and creativity that was once so important in the US. Because of these centralized examinations, teachers feel as if their autonomy is fleeting, leading to a decrease in teacher professionalism. Also, the structure of the governing bodies in schools has changed from a professional or working together for one goal of serving students to bureaucratic, a competitive structure that focuses on performance of teachers and students. The role of competitiveness, centralized examinations, and government structures in the secondary schools of the US seem to make up a dangerous triangle in our country. Thank you. I have lots of words.